Well, hello everybody. Welcome to P.B.M. Money. Today, I'm going to talk about savers versus spenders. I've never seen anybody talk about this, but everybody falls into one of these two categories. Now, most people in the normal course of events don't think about this until they're in a relationship or married. But today, I want to impress, especially on the young people that are watching, how important this message is. When you think about being in a relationship or being married, there are only three possible scenarios that the couple can handle. And one is you're both savers. Number two, one's a saver, one's a spender. Number three, the reverse. There's only one of those that ever prospers, and that's when both of them are savers. Now, I've been married twice. My first wife passed away. My second wife and I divorced. My first wife was a saver, as I am. My second wife was a spender. So I know what I'm talking about when I talk about savers versus spenders. I'm going to compare and contrast so that you can see how your future looks based on who you are with. If you're a spender, you need to be with another spender. If you're a spender, you will never prosper unless you just get absolutely lucky and your name is Bill Gates or something like that. Otherwise, you will always spend more than you make. My second wife had the uncanny ability that if I made 10,000, she spent 11. If I made $1 million, she spent $1,000,001. She always outspent my making, and that's typical. Now, I made a list, and I want to preface this list by saying I watched a YouTube show one time, and a guy and a girl were on their first date, and he asked the girl what her credit rating was. Number one, she knew what it was, which is kind of impressive. And number two, because he knew what the credit rating meant, he knew she was a saver and not a spender. That is the kind of conversation you need to have on your first or second date. What's your credit rating? Where do you work? What kind of car do you drive? These will all be indicators. But the number one is he or she a saver or a spender? And I'm going to give you some guidelines here where you don't have to come out and say are you a saver or a spender, but you'll be able to tell just by the circumstances. A saver usually owns a house. A spender usually rents a house. A saver always has a job. A spender sometimes has a job. A saver has the ability to take 2 or 3 vacations a year. My first wife and I, we owned a house, we owned 2 cars, we made average money, but we took 2 to 3 vacations a year at our timeshare. My second wife and I took 1 vacation in 3 years, and I had to take my retirement fund to pay for it. My first wife and I had a timeshare in Daytona Beach Shores. My second wife and I owned nothing. She had a beater car. I had the car I came into the marriage with, and we rented an apartment. As I said, we had 2 nice cars, my first wife and I. My second wife, she drove a beater, and I had my car from before we got married. My first wife and I owned several businesses. My second wife, I tried to buy her a business so she could have something to do. She refused me. I offered to get her jobs 2 or 3 different times. She refused me. My first wife and I, we prioritized our needs and our wants. My second wife only prioritized her wants. My first wife and I bought rental properties. My second wife and I rented rental properties. My first wife and I enjoyed buying nice jewelry. Men and women's jewelry. My second wife wore costume jewelry. And just as an aside, my second wife, one time, she said, you and your first wife had businesses, you vacationed all the time, you owned a timeshare, you owned a house, you had nice cars. How come we don't do any of that? And I looked at her and I said, are you kidding me? In order to do those things, you have to be able to save the money. You spend it faster than I can make it. We will never have anything. We will never do anything. We will never go anywhere because you spend too much. And I've told you this. The purpose of this video is not to beat up on one of my wives. That's not the goal of this video. This video is to tell you that I've lived both lifestyles. Now, since I've gotten divorced, it's been about, 18 years. Whatever, however long it's been. And in that time, I have not made money at all. But because I saved, we now own rental property. I now own rental property. I now have a lot of money in the bank. She is still not working. She's living off of the state. She still drives the beater car that she's had for years. Her idea of proper use of a credit card is through the year, she puts all of her bills on there. And then when she files her income tax, she pays it off and starts over. When you're a spender, that's how you do things. Now, before we got married, I knew that she did that. I thought it was because she didn't make any money. No. She did that because that's how she thinks about money. It's there for her wants, not for her needs. So, my advice to especially young people, older people should already know this, but for you younger people, yes, love is important, attraction is important, compatibility is important. But being with a saver is much more important than most of those things. Because if you're a saver and your partner is a saver, you will do well in life. You will have to try hard not to do well. But if you're a saver and your partner is a spender, I guarantee you, unless you hit the lottery, you will never have anything. You will go through life paycheck to paycheck, wondering where your money goes. And I know that's a fact. I'm going to tell you one more story about my second wife. We hadn't been married 2 months. And the statement came in. I never saw the mail, by the way. I didn't have a mail key. I couldn't get the mail. She's the one who got the mail. But the bank statement came in, and I opened it up, and I was overdrawn more than $1,000. I've never been overdrawn. So I said, what in the hell is going on? And she said, well, I don't know. I said, get me your checkbook register. She said, I don't have a register. I said, what? I said, how do you keep track of the checks that you've written? So she pulls a checkbook out of her pocket, and written on the back is 2 checks. Not who they're to, the check number and the amount, that's all. I said, no, there's more than this. Go get me the rest of your checkbooks. And this is no lie. She brought me in about 6 checkbooks with different numbers written on the back. No dates. The number and the amount. That's all. She never kept track of the balance. She had no idea how much was in there or how much she spent. Unbelievable. And that's how she ran her life. And that's how you will be spending your life if you don't pay attention to whether your prospective partner is a saver or a spender. That's all I want to talk about. You guys have a great day, a great week, and happy investing.